Marcus Crowick is a business coach, profit-first professional, and entrepreneur with over 40 years of experience helping business owners take control of their finances and build profitable, stress-free businesses. In this podcast, you'll get real-world strategies and practical insights to grow, increase profits, and create financial stability. Whether you're a tradie, a startup, or an established entrepreneur, Marcus's straightforward approach will help you build a thriving business. This is Business Unlocked.
Hello and welcome to this episode. I'm here today with Martha Travis, who's a local expert along for us today, and she's here to talk about all things HR, her experience in her own businesses over the years, what's going on for her now, and to add some expert advice for your business to make sure you get it right. Martha, welcome.
Thanks. Lovely to be here. Thanks, Marcus.
It's just wonderful to have you along. I know your expertise well, and I'm looking forward to people finding out the real deal when it comes to HR and all things HR. Well, a few of them at least in what we're going to be talking about today. What's been going on for you in the last 6 months or so, and any lessons that have come out of that?
I guess the biggest challenge we've been facing in my business for the last little while is around resources, and that constant juggle between, do you build capacity so that you can scale and take on extra clients and make sure you're billing enough, or do you wait and see, like what's the right timing and all the rest of it. And so that's been a bit of a struggle for the last little while.
That's a big question for people all the time as they're growing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I had a full-time employee who left the business in January, and I thought, okay, well, we'll see how it goes and see whether I can sort of take on the fill the gap that she left. And I found that I've struggled more and more because the clients keep coming, and we don't want to say no to clients.
That's what we're there for, isn't it?
We don't want to say no to the current ones. We don't want to say no to new ones. So I've been struggling more and more with capacity. And then another one of my team came to me and said, the side hustle that you've been encouraging me to build has gone off, and I now want to reduce to 2 days a week. So though I had a further diminishment of capacity in my team. So I'm at a point right now where I absolutely need some extra hands. So in the last month or so, I've been working towards trying to do that. So, but as I said, it's a challenge to know when is the right time to actually bring those people on.
So there's that balancing act of, do I bring somebody on and I've got to pay for that until they can pay for themselves?
Correct. Yep.
Or do I build the customers and work more and more myself, or put the team under pressure until I can afford to bring them on?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And that is the challenge. And then, there's also the extra piece as well that you kind of alluded to around bringing them on and paying them until they can pay for themselves. There's also the training that goes into starting a new person that pulls you out of the business as well. So, you've got to spend time with that new person to teach them how to do their job effectively. So you're losing double productivity in a way,
Yeah, so it's saying it's not as simple as just saying, I'm going to get this person and Monday morning they're out there billing.
Correct.
Your experience from business to business, you've got to bring them on board them, whatever you like to call it. Yep. To get them really productive.
Correct.
And what's the danger if you don't do that?
They're not going to ever be productive, or they're not going to be productive to the level that you need them to be. And there's, quality failures in regard to the service that's provided to clients. So you absolutely have to invest.
Don't know what the word, I'll make up a word, disgruntlement, that if you're not onboarding them properly, making them part of your business. Yeah,
absolutely. And anyone would get frustrated if, they come into a business, they're expected to do a job, but they don't know where to go to get things or how to log into that system, or didn't even know that whole piece of information was available over there. And they've been, rabbiting away creating it again to find out that it's already been built by somebody else,
Yeah. So if you're not bringing them on properly, even in onboarding them properly, because I can understand some business owners thinking, well, the cost of doing that, I just need to get them out there working. But it's a false saving in a way, long term.
Exactly. It's a bit like those times in business where you think, oh my gosh, I've done this 5 times and I keep thinking I need to fix this because I have to do this workaround because it just needs fixing, but you don't make the time to fix it. And you keep doing these crazy workarounds. It's that same sort of idea. So make the time to train someone properly, because then you can just palm stuff off to them and they'll know exactly what to do. You know, you can just say, hey, I've sent you an email that's got 3 bullet points in it. You know what to do with it from here, rather than having to take them step by step every time.
Yeah. And so if you're training them properly, you're actually creating the systems for your business at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Were you able to come up with a decision for yourself about how you bring somebody on, like just bring them on and somehow pay for it, build it, and then bring them on when the money's coming in? And the secondary question there, just to load your brain up, is there a simple decision for businesses out there about the way to do that?
I don't think there's a simple decision, but for me, I ended up going down the casual route. So making it very clear when I was advertising that it's casual work, no guarantee of hours. But then as I was talking to candidates, I'd sort of say to them, look, you know, once you're trained and you know what you're doing, and, you know, we've got some stuff in the pipeline that I'm waiting to see whether it's going to drop. When it drops, you know, I'll be optimistic when it drops. Then there is that potential that I can sort of comfortably say, you know, I can give you a minimum of X number of hours a week.
Yeah, and that's what you want to do.
That's right, because it encourages loyalty from both sides then, of course.
Yeah.
So, but I've used this model before in my business. So, you know, my very first employee engaged her while she was still a student at uni as a casual. About 6 months down the track, we converted her to part-time, and she had some minimum guaranteed hours, and then eventually she moved to full-time. So, you know, providing that you're staging that correctly, you can sort of build it up as you go. So
yeah. And do you find many people are comfortable with the idea of, look, this is where we're at and we're going to build it? There is a brightness of future for you here?
I think so. I think it also depends on where you capture people at the point in their career. I mean, honestly, people aren't likely to move from a full-time job to a casual job.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you've got someone returning to the workforce, or they're looking for a bit more flexibility, or, you know, they are a student or a recent graduate, it might work really well for their lifestyle.
I've seen that with students, graduates, and the idea of being given a go, because depending on the career you choose, it can be pretty hard to break in some fields. Yep. The other one, I just wrote sort of an aside comment here. I've always been a big believer. Through my own businesses, I've found women coming back into the workforce, and maybe their late 20s, early 30s, and they now have all this life experience. If they've been out, they've probably been raising kids, running a household, and often it really suits because they don't want a full-time job, but they come in and they like set the world on fire to they're bits of gold that you find out there. Yeah, you found that same.
Absolutely. Also, people coming back from caring responsibility, so they might have had a full career and sort of reached their mid-50s or whatever, and they've had to care for an elderly, you know, parent or whatever. Yeah. But they've still got so much to give. Yeah. And then, you know, that caring responsibility ends, and all of a sudden they're like, well, what do I do with my time now? And this is a really good way for them to engage their brains again and get back in. And
I know people like that just want to get out of particularly if they've been building what we might call a bigger career, like corporate or a bigger business, where they're like, you know, I'm sick of the hours. And it's not that they're sick of work. They still love their expertise, but they don't, whether it's traveling in general, traveling to Sydney, just give me somewhere local where I can help. And again, you get a bit of gold by having those people out there.
Totally.
So the decision for people as to whether they hire and work out how to pay for it, or build the business so that it's got the money to pay for them, it's not a simple decision. What are some of the things that you'd see them needing to take into account?
Absolutely. So I think your own lifestyle as a business owner to start off with, you know, if you're working 12, 15 hours a day, trying to stay in 6-7 days a week, trying to stay on top of everything, that's a pretty clear sign that you need some help. Yes. If you're doing the right thing by your business, not all of your time, it should be revenue generating anyway, whether you call it billable or whatever. You can't be the revenue maker on your own for all of that time. Choices are you scale back your clients and you say, I can't take any more clients, or you scale back the expectations of your current clients, or you build capacity.
We're really saying there it's not a simple choice, and it's not even a straight line choice between this one and this one. There's a matrix of things that have to be considered.
Correct.
And you could end up somewhere in there, and it's really, that's where, I mean, you can help them with that in what you do.
Absolutely.
People innovators. Yeah. Yeah, to make that decision.
Absolutely. I've got some models with some of my clients where I'm on a retainer with them. So there's an expectation that I'm going to provide a certain level of service. So I need to be making sure that I can fulfill that service level for those retained clients, as well as deal with the other ad hoc stuff that comes and goes. So it's really just managing all, as you say, that matrix, all those moving parts, and determining what's going to be best for your clients and your business. Yeah.
And I'd say that from my point of view, with what I do, we put in a financial modelling around that as well, whether it's from a profit first point of view, open up a bank account and we'll start putting some money aside. An organisation I used to be with, we'd say when you can afford half the person, they'll pay the other half themselves. But we can put that money aside to see if you're actually affording it. So there's all sorts of things going on there.
But I think if you're using a casual model as well, so about to bring someone on who's a casual, and part of the remit for them will be, once they're through their onboarding and training phase, we'll agree at what point that is. It could be a week, could be 2 weeks, whatever, but we'll be asking them to start working towards 80% billable time. So that, they're still going to need to have some time to do admin and fill out their timesheet and attend meetings and, read their emails and all of those things that aren't billable, but they'll be asked to strive towards that 80% billable, and providing that you've set your numbers up correctly, then that should be enough to pay for them.
There's an important point that comes up for me there, and I want to get your expertise in this, because we have had some changes over the last few years when it comes to what's a casual, what's part-time, what's an independent contractor. And I still see lots of confusion out there, really understandably. So what's the difference between having casual, part-time, full-time, independent contractor to do your, or subby if you like, to do your work?
That's quite a long conversation, but generally speaking,
you've got 30 seconds.
So, but look, let's start with contractor versus employee, because that's the first one. Really, it comes down to control. So if I engage you, Marcus, to be an independent contractor, you would have an expectation that you can decide when you do the work, how you do the work, who does the work. You expect to use all your own tools and resources to be able to do the work, etc.
So you've given me a scope, and now it's up to me.
I need to give you. You need to deliver some outcomes, and I'm going to pay you X amount for you to deliver those outcomes. But you get to control how and when that happens. If I want to dictate what hours you're going to work, and I want you to use my tools and resources, and I want you to respond to my emails and beck and call when I need to, and, all of those things. When I want complete control, you're probably more of an employee than you are an independent contractor. The other key point is, am I buying your labour or am I buying your service? So an example would be, we've got an accountant who's a client, and they engage someone to provide tax advice. But essentially they engage that person on an hourly basis. So they can still be an independent contractor, but what that does is opens up liability to pay superannuation, because you're actually engaging their labour rather than deliver an outcome.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I would argue, well, my tool of trade is my intellectual property. So,
but as long as you're not billing me in hours based on work.
So you're saying if it's an accountant and they want, I want your advice on this piece of tax legislation or this client, and I'm going to pay you this amount of money for it. It takes you 5 minutes, 3 hours. Time's gone from that equation.
Correct.
Okay. And now we have the casual. What's the difference between a casual person and someone otherwise employed at the moment?
So a casual would generally be someone who has unpredictable hours. So they're engaged at short notice. They can be cancelled at short notice. There's no ongoing expectation of work or hours. So if you've got someone who's working 30 to 38 hours a week every week in your business, they're probably not a proper casual, because they're not. It's not intermittent. It's not. They would, after a period of time, after 6 months, 12 months, they'd start having an expectation of ongoing work.
And so especially with a casual, if you're saying, I don't know the regular number of hours, but maybe there's 2 shifts a week where you're going to come in Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's an expectation of work now.
To some degree, because they might only have availability on Tuesday or Thursday. So it doesn't necessarily make them a part-timer, but it just means that I might not have work for you on Tuesday and Thursday.
Right.
But if that's your availability, I'll see what I can do.
Okay, because then as the employee, I'm providing some restrictions on when I can work as well.
Yep. And that's your right as a casual.
Yes.
You're right pretty much as any employee. You can say, I'm only available at this time, and whether the employer can deal with that becomes the negotiation point. But
it brings us to that next point of, the importance of having somebody with some expertise in HR, such as yourself.
Figure it out, yeah.
Yeah, and I mentioned to you before, I watched a segment on the Today Show where they were talking because of wage increases, that there are even some of the big companies, multinational, multi-billion-dollar companies that are getting wages wrong and making up for wages that they've incorrectly paid, whether that's through a system error or incorrect interpretation. So tell me about why we should have an expert in HR and payroll to decide on awards, pay rates, all those sorts of things.
It's a very tricky landscape, to be honest. I could give you a lot of examples, but I would just give you a couple. A lot of my clients are covered by the social, community and disability. So they're in the community services. It's called the SHADS Award. It's probably the most complex award out there at the moment. And lots of people are covered by that award. So if you took that award and followed it letter by letter, by the letter of the law, so to speak, if someone worked between Friday and Monday doing an excursion with a client and they didn't have proper breaks and everything, they could earn $9,000 over 4 days.
Wow. So
because that's just if you follow everything that the award says. So obviously, the client isn't going to be able to afford that out of their disability package. The employer can't afford it. Most employers would like to take the money, of course, but they're realistic at the same time. So, there's times like that where even if you're following the award, it kind of doesn't make sense. So I've got another client who works in the club industry, and I only found out last week that they've got some hangovers from the state award before even the modern award came out in 2009, that they still carry that custom and practice over for their duty managers, and I wasn't even aware of that. But this is where, fortunately for them, what they're doing is over the award, not under the award. But if they were carrying a custom and practice over from historical times that actually made that person worse off overall, it could create a liability for them within their business. But as you say, it could just be a box that's ticked or not ticked in the payroll system. That could
error.
Yeah, exactly.
And causes you all sorts of problems. And one of the warnings for people there, my understanding again, is if you're implementing or have implemented something into your business that is above the award and that becomes standard practice, that then becomes the practice for your business?
Somewhat. It would depend again on what mechanisms you have to pull back on that. So if you have an offsetter clause inside employment contracts that says at any time we can offset an increase or an overpayment or an underpayment against something that we've already done, then you can offset it. But if you don't have that clause, then yes, you could be living with it. So
yeah. And there are other interpretations I said, well, they're probably not meant to be interpretations. It's meant to be, here's what the award says. But I deal with lots of trades and manufacturing, and there'll be allowances in there. And unless you know that award, I've come across some in the last couple of years, and I've gone, what on earth's that? So can you tell us a little bit about being careful with allowances and different penalty rates?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important to really read the award, and if you're not 100% sure how to pay someone in certain circumstances, go back to the award and reread it. And if you have to read it 5 times and talk it out with someone, whatever, because sometimes that's what it takes. But hang on, so in this situation, they do this and they do that. So then they would be paid this, but they wouldn't get that, but they would get this, because you have to kind of, they wouldn't get that allowance, but they'd get this penalty instead or whatever. So it's really about going back and making sure that you fully understand the award in the circumstances that you're looking at it for.
And I imagine from that still, for somebody like you who's used to dealing with different examples of this, it might be a little bit clearer than if I'm sitting down reading it 5 times?
I think so. I mean, look, I still have to go back to the awards and read them. And, you know, my clients often come to me with the tricky stuff because it is tricky, which is why they come to me. And, you know, sometimes I have to go back and reread and cross-reference different clauses before I can be comfortable to give them the advice that I think is the right advice. But it's interesting. I mean, you know, you can call the Fair Work Ombudsman and ask for their advice as to how they pay. For starters, they've always got a caveat of like, you know, we recommend that you go and get a specialist external advice. We're not, you know, we'll give you some guidelines. But there's been times when I've spoken to the Fair Work Ombudsman because I wasn't clear about something, and I've ended up almost in an argument with someone because it's like, but hang on, what about this? Oh yeah. So even they don't always know exactly how to interpret an award either. So.
I can understand that because people don't know. One of my funny little quirks that I have is that I'm a marriage celebrant as well, and people get referred to Service New South Wales for things, and they do their best, but they deal with so many different parts of legislation and departments that they'll get it wrong.
Yeah.
And marriage celebrants get it wrong as well. So I can imagine, you know, when you ring up one of those numbers, that's a problem. So we've got that payroll there. We've got when do you bring people on, the matrix of making decisions there. You go beyond that, and it's something else for people to be aware of. We've talked about the onboarding people. Any particular tips for getting it right or what might cause it to go wrong?
Generally, they say that the first 90 days is the most critical part of onboarding someone and their success, whether it's to get them to stay or whether it's to get them productive or a combination of those things. Taking the time before you start someone to think through what things you need to cover and have an onboarding checklist.
Yes.
I mean, there's obviously all the things that you have to do for everybody. So, you know, bank tax, super, personal details, blah, 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 blah. Don't forget the Fair Work Information Statements. There's 3 of them now. So there's the Fair Work Information Statement. There's the Casual Employment Information Statement, which needs to be given at the commencement, after 6 months, and then 12 months thereafter. And there's also the Fixed Term Contract Information Statement. So you just got to make sure you do those ones. So making sure that they get out, getting all the appropriate information, qualifications, licenses, right to work, all of the standard stuff. And then think about what do you need to take them through to really help them learn their job. Because even if they're experienced, even if you're bringing on someone to do a job and they've got 20 years experience doing it, how you do it's going to be different.
Yes.
The systems that you use and the processes that you use are going to be different. So just making sure that you think it through, you take the time to do an onboarding checklist and you take it through logically and help them build that resource and that information.
I'm going to step you back there still when it comes to when you start somebody, there are government mandated bits of paper checklists that you've got to give people. How often do you find that employers aren't aware of all of those different bits of information and checklists, whatever, that they've got to give people?
A lot.
Yeah.
So last year I onboarded a client who was actually the sporting, the club industry one. They've been a club for 40 years and had never handed out a Fair Work Information Statement ever, or nobody had an employment contract. They didn't have policies and procedures because they didn't think they needed to, because they'd just been bumping along quite nicely. So
yeah, okay. And when you say a club, was it like a licensed club or a... So that's somebody who has to undertake auditing, do all sorts of different things.
Yeah. And they did all of that from an RSA, RCG perspective.
And accounting tax perspective is... Yeah.
Exactly. So the payroll's fine.
Yep.
You know, quality from an operational perspective was fine, but the people bit was the bit that was missing.
And then we come to bring people on, make sure their first 90 days are set up, but you can't forget about them. What do you do from there going forward?
I mean, obviously the first 90 days, as we've said, is critical, and I really encourage regular discussions throughout that 90 days. So at the end of their first day, end of their first week, make it fairly informal, but how are you going? Find out if there's any early issues.
Yeah.
that's making them feel uncomfortable, that's when you're most likely to walk away from a business, is in that first week to 2 weeks, because it's not feeling comfortable. But as the owner or the employer, you can sort of overcome those obstacles. That's great. Moving forward past that 90 days, again, I'm a big fan of regular feedback.
Yes.
I don't believe in a once-a-year appraisal. You don't remember what someone did a year ago, let's be honest.
You don't get to the end of the game and say, that first 10 minutes wasn't good.
Correct, exactly. So, having regular feedback, best practice I would say would be fortnightly, but if you just don't have the time, understand, but minimum of monthly, you should be catching up with your team, each of them individually. So one of the things that I have clients say to me, but I talk to my team all the time. It's like, well, you may talk to them as a group, or you may talk to them individually about operational stuff. But if you're not setting time aside to specifically talk to them about them, how they are going in their job, whether they're enjoying it, what aspects are challenging or things that they should be celebrating or how they want to develop, you're wasting that resource. You're wasting a lot of information that could be coming. So really making a habit of having that regular feedback discussion is really important.
I'd see that when I've dealt with the directors of companies, and I'll be talking to them about, there's got to be the monthly meeting and you really should have some sort of directors meeting each week. And they'll say, particularly if it's a husband and wife type pairing, we're talking to each other all the time. That's what we do all day long. And then you sit them down in a meeting and they say, I didn't know that. Because they're not having a directors meeting, they're carrying out the day. The same thing when it comes to the team and those, I talk to them all day long.
Yep. And that's just BAU, which is completely fine and it's necessary. But as I said, if you're not putting that special time with that person to ask them some very specific questions about how they're going, then you're not going to know that info.
And that's the personal part of it, isn't it? As we bring them through belonging to the team, being part of the team, wanting to stay with the business ongoing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, as a business owner and leader, sometimes you don't even realise how you're coming across either.
Yes.
So this gives you an opportunity to ask for that feedback. And if you've built a good trusting relationship because you've had open communication from the beginning, that person's more likely to say, well, Marcus, to be honest, it annoys me a little bit when you say we're going to meet at 11 and then you don't turn up until 15:15. Can you work on that for me, please?
Yes.
All of a sudden, if you can fix that, that removes an irritant from that relationship, and it's same as any relationship, right?
And as you bring that up, I pride myself on being on time, but like many relationships, it's the little things that can get
That's
people.
Right. And then when something big happens, all of those little irritants have built up some resentment already. So that becomes a tipping point.
Yeah.
And what becomes the big thing may not have been a big thing if all the other little things have been dealt with.
So if we step our way through having team members, first is the decision about when do I bring them on board? Is it when I've got the money? Is it when I've got the work? Plus all of these other factors involved there.
Yep.
How do I actually pay them? We've got to get that right, the award agreement, whatever it happens to be, in order to make sure that's set in place and that everybody knows what's expected of them. It was also employment agreements. We came into that. We didn't really even mention those, but
touched on it, but yep.
Yes, getting the expectations right from both sides along there. Onboard them well with a 90-day program plan to make sure that that's being carried out.
Yes.
Make sure that you're having regular meetings so that you're not just getting to the end of the game and going, well, that didn't work out, see you later. And then there's put a plan together, I imagine. What is it career progression, whatever that happens to be, their KPIs, milestones are being employed. And then you have a game plan and you're having the conversations just like the football game or whatever sport that you like is taking place to make sure that everyone gets the result that they want.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So one of the things, just to break it down into two very simple pieces, part of what we deliver is what we refer to as a people framework, and it has what and how.
Okay.
So the what is your employment agreement, the award, your position description, your SOPs, your day-to-day instructions, what you're going to be working on. And then you've got the how, which is the behavioural components. So the cultural fit, how you communicate with other people, et cetera, et cetera. The way we go about it is we try to build a behavioural framework that's linked to the values of the organisation. And that becomes then a full framework that you can manage your people against.
Yes.
And then it's not about your opinion. You're not then saying to someone, well, Martha, I didn't really like how you responded there because it upset me. You can say, well, you didn't live the values because we agreed that you would act with integrity. On that occasion, I think that was questionable, or whatever the story is.
Yes.
Overarching all of that is what you refer to around the KPIs. And this is, again, one of the things that we're very passionate about, is helping businesses connect their people with where they want to take their business. So if you've spent a lot of time building a business plan, a marketing plan, or whatever plan, blah, blah plan, you know what you're trying to achieve, but you don't communicate that effectively to your team, you don't set them some targets that will help you get there, and you don't manage them against that target, you probably get to the end of the 12 months and be disappointed because you haven't hit your targets.
And I'd say that whole thing of the plan, whole episode on this to come is also if you're not building that with the team, and we talk about ownership and engagement and whatever, the thought that is in my head comes back to many things that have happened in businesses and franchises, and it's the people on the ground that come up with the brilliant idea.
Absolutely.
So if you're not engaging them, you're missing out on terrific ideas.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So people can get in contact with you, People Innovators, Martha Travis, marthatravis.com. And that's get in contact with you and find out what they can, have a meeting with you to see how you can help. Final message for people?
There's lots of information out there to help you do stuff yourself. There's no question about that. We've got, for example, a people review checklist on our website that you can, it's like a questionnaire that you can answer. You fill it out, takes you about 20 minutes. We'll give you a score and a report about the general health of your people aspects. And then we'll give you some recommendations, and you can choose to come to us to help you do that, or you can do it yourself. Yeah. So there's lots of things that you can do yourself that can save you money or fast track things for you. I would suggest that you subscribe to things such as the Fair Work Ombudsman newsletter, specifically around the award that covers your business, and that you just try and stay on top of various publications so that you know what things are going on, so that you can ensure that you're compliant. But auditing's great. So go back every 6 months and
simply engage you to do that for me, which I know a lot of the entrepreneurs out there are like, I don't want to deal with that. Can't I just have the people to deal with that? And so, that's what experts are out there for, to help you do that along the way. Make sure you get in contact with Martha, fill out the questionnaire. I promise you, she doesn't have a team of telemarketers who are going to hassle you to hand over money. She's there to help. All the local people I know in business, the experts out there, I don't know any of them that are actually out there hassling people, with that idea of telemarketers and being bombarded with emails.
No.
It's we're not those sort of businesses.
No.
So fill out the questionnaire and see how you go. Martha, thanks so much for being along. I've learned something again today. I always do when I talk to people. Wonderful to have you, and I look forward to getting you back at another time.
Lovely. Thanks for that.